Hey everyone, it's so nice to see people are actually here, and I really hope that you brought some questions because today is an open Q&A, meaning I'm going to take your questions, and I really hope you have some questions. I did, full disclosure, I knew that okay, I'm behind on my YouTube comments. I am behind. I'm a company of one. And so sometimes it's hard to keep track. And I know there are questions on there, and I was going to go there as a backup, but today was a little bit rushed. So I didn't. So I'm hoping that you've maybe brought some questions. Otherwise, I guess I could just open some of these YouTube comments and look for the questions because I know that there are some in there. However, if you showed up live and you are here with me right now, I obviously want to be able to tackle anything that you are wondering about. And I specifically didn't give direction because I'm open to what you are wondering about, whether it's presentation stuff, whether it's tech stuff, whether it's a question about me. I don't know. So I'm going to leave that open and would love to hear what you want to say. But basically, if you've got some questions, I would love to hear them. And if needed, we can always dig into some of the other questions that I have been a little bit behind on when it comes to my YouTube comment section. I see we have one. This is exciting. Okay, so Robert is asking, what camera are you using? So right now, I am using the Sony ZV-1 or ZV-1, depending on which country you live in. So that is what I have set up. I do have an overhead shot today. I came prepared in that way. So if we take a look, let's pop over to my overhead camera. So this is my overhead shot right now, and my primary camera, the Sony, is behind my teleprompter right here. It is the Sony ZV-1. I also recently, so for a lot of Zoom meetings, I was using my built-in camera, but I found that it was very overexposed. So I did pop on my webcam here so that I'm using that now if I'm just having a straightforward kind of one-to-one Zoom meeting. And fun news, I had a coupon, like a pretty significant coupon. So I decided to order the new Sony ZV-E10. So that's going to ship soon. I don't want to say it's an impulse decision, but my intention for that, so let's go back to the overhead shot. What I'm thinking, and I'm open to some advice, is maybe putting the Sony ZV-E10 here, kind of right beside my teleprompter. So I'd be looking here, a little bit off to the side, but then I have a really good quality camera for when I am in just regular meetings where I don't need the teleprompter and I really want to be closer to my screen. Because right now, when I look down at my screen, I have to travel a fair distance to get there. That's why for many of my meetings, I just use the overhead, or now I'm using the webcam, so I can kind of easily quickly look down. And I do practice what I preach. I look into the camera all of the time. So I'm still making eye contact with the people on the call, similar to what I do with a teleprompter. However, having the second camera not behind a teleprompter, I think is a nice option to have, but also accessibility for being able to take it and actually record stuff outside of this studio, because I don't do that right now. And partly it's because getting that camera out of that teleprompter is a bit of I just don't want to. Like, it seems like a lot of work to have to go and to take out, everything's plugged in, it's all set up and ready to go for streaming. So I don't want to touch that thing, but I would like to be able to kind of quickly unlatch a camera and take it on the go. So we'll see what actually happens, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. Okay, so let's see. Okay, Benjamin. Okay, so I see another question. I'm going to see if there's any follow-up on what I just shared. Okay, so will you need a capture card for the new? So the Sony ZV-E10 does technically plug in directly with USB so that you don't need to have a capture card, which is really nice, especially with the budget of that camera. It's a nice price point for getting a nice camera for streaming, presentations, etc., and not needing a capture card. However, I do plan to still use a capture card. I already have 2 capture cards. So I have the Cam Link 4K, which is what my current camera is using. And I have the HD60S Plus. I did have to look. That's typically what I will use in order to connect my laptop to a production. So for example, last week I was showing my MacBook and I was using that second capture card. So I think for now I will use the second capture card. That's going to be my intention. It's nice to have the option to just plug it in directly, but I do think I'm going to use the capture card for bringing in the image. It'll just be a higher quality image, and I do already have one. For anyone who's doing capture card research, there are cheaper options that are available. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on an Elgato card, but I trust the Elgato capture cards. So, and since I already have them, I'm just going to stick with that. So that's going to be my intention, but I might test out the difference between just plugging it in directly versus plugging it in through a capture card. So I'm just going to see if there's anything else about, okay. And then while we're on the camera, how do you plan to mount the new camera? That's a great question. So what I'm thinking, I don't know how much you can see here. If we go here, you'll see my mic is on a stand that's clamped to the desk. I was thinking if I can get a clamp beside, so basically just a little bit further over, and have it a stand that comes up. And so I would have it on a one, I don't, what do you call that? Single, a post? Help me out here. I don't know what it's called, but it would clamp to the desk and go straight up, and I would screw on the camera. Yeah, that's the nice technical term. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, I've got some Notion questions. That's fun. Okay, let's go back to my next question in, the next one in a row. And thank you for actually asking questions. I appreciate it. Okay, so what audio tech do you suggest for live and recording for quality audio with no lag to video? So full disclosure, and I think I may have said this to you before, Benjamin, audio is really not my strong suit. It's something I am still learning. I am working to get better at it, but it's not, as long as you can hear me, that's kind of my, like, hey, let's keep going. As I mentioned at the start of the live stream today, it's just me. I'm an organization of one. So I do find trying to keep up and trying to find time to learn while also trying to juggle all of the things that you need to do in order to keep your business afloat. That tends to be one of those things that kind of gets pushed down. I make sure you can hear me, and I have made some changes for anyone who's been around for a while. Early on, people could barely hear me at all. I was really low on my live streams, so I've made some strides. But I have found that when I go live, so right now I've got my camera plugged in to my computer, so I'm bringing that into Ecamm. And then earlier when I got my new mic, I went USB. So I am using the, oh man, I almost forgot, the MV7, the Shure MV7. So I have that. I used to plug that directly into USB. And then when I did get the Rodecaster Pro, which someone mentioned that they noticed it on my desk, that is a new addition from this summer, I then plugged that in, and I just bring those two sources in, and I have found, at least no one has told me that I have a really big lag problem. So I just go with it. And if it's a tiny little lag that's not enough to bother people, then I just go with it. So really the answer is I'm probably not the person to ask that question to. I have not had super lag problems, but I know people have. Maybe I'm having one right now, but you're still here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to try to answer the question, or at least address the question, so I'm not ignoring it, but I'm not very helpful. I know there are people in this chat right now who know more about this than me, and so maybe they can help you out. And if anyone does put an answer, I'm happy to share that on the screen, because I see some names in here that I know more about audio than I do. But I have found so far my videos don't seem to be very laggy, or at least not enough for people to notice. And people tell me, they tell me when my audio is low. They'll tell me when I've got the autofocus thing that was going for a while, I seem to have calmed that down. So I don't know, let me know if it's really bad. And thank you, Sammy. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I had an opportunity to save 25% off a purchase. And so 25% off of that camera, that adds up pretty big. So I was pretty excited. Okay, so about the Rodecaster Pro, how much are you using it and would you recommend it? I am not using it a lot. Well, I use it every time I use my microphone because I'm using this as so for the XLR. So my Shure MV7 has both USB and XLR options. And so I am using XLR. So I'm going through the Rodecaster Pro into my computer. I recently got on a call with my friend India Delgado. It was very helpful, helped me out with some of setting up and making sure that I was checking my levels and showed me some buttons I didn't know about before, because when I got this, it was right before I was leaving for a couple of weeks. And so I just really didn't have the time to figure it out. So I have made some adjustments, played around with the levels, kind of trying to get that tailored at least to where it's suitable. And, but I definitely would say I'm not a power user. I'm not taking full advantage of it. I know some of the benefits are, if you are a podcast recorder, being able to record your podcast directly on here. I have not programmed any of the sound effects. So if I tap any of these buttons, I actually don't know what would happen if I did. So I have not taken full advantage. It is in my Notion projects list. It does say learn the Rodecaster Pro. Like, I want to learn it properly. So that is my intention. It's just, as I said before, kind of a little bit lower on the priority list, if that makes sense. It's still something I want to learn. I just have to pick what comes next. So as far as recommending it, right now for what I am doing, if you are focused on doing presentations, and I did all of that before without the Rodecaster Pro, and I think I did just fine. I like the ability to adjust the gain using the Rodecaster Pro, because I had pretty much maxed out my gain with the USB, and I did find the levels pretty low. But that being said, most microphones, if people can hear you clearly and they can see you, you don't necessarily need to spend that much money on a Rodecaster Pro. That's my opinion right now. So it's not going to be for everyone. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay. Oh, okay. Patrick, have you had to deal with hybrid events? Just wondering how to keep the people in person and online more engaged. This is an excellent question. And I have not technically dealt with any hybrid events recently. I did used to work in an environment where I worked at a university where we had multiple campuses. And so we did have rooms that were set up for hybrid meetings where we had people in the room and people coming in from the university. So they were at the other campus. So they were coming in from a television. We had microphones, and it's basically kind of experienced the hybrid technology that would be very similar right now if you were bringing people in remotely and sitting in the room. It is very challenging. And I did have someone approach me and ask if I might consult on this. And I said, not yet, because I do not have any hands-on experience, but there are a lot of things that right away, because of my experience before, both being on the in-person side and being on the remote side, like being on the remote side when other people are together in a group, it is a powerful experience, and how much you feel completely left out. So you really have to address that. You cannot just put up a camera and invite people virtually and then just pretend like everything is going to be fine. It is a lot more work. Like, putting on a good remote event is a lot of work, but at least you're looking in the camera. Everyone attending is seeing you look in the camera. When you're in person, you have to engage with the people in the room, and you have to not ignore the camera and going out to the people who are joining you remotely. So it takes a lot more foresight, a lot more preparation, facilitation skills, making sure you are giving people an opportunity, making sure you're acknowledging the remote folks, because there's a little bit of that delay if you say, anyone have questions? People in the room are going to dominate over the people who are in the remote location. So I guess all that to say, since everything has happened and since I have this set up, I have not done anything hybrid. I think I'd be curious to work with somebody on a hybrid event to see if we can address some of those concerns, but it's not really necessarily my expertise, but it's something that's going to be happening. So we do need to get ready for it. I think a lot of businesses want the option of having people come in remotely and having people in the room. So that's going to be, I think, the next big thing that we have to figure out. And sadly, I don't think people have really figured out the remote only thing either, because a lot of people have just said, well, this is temporary, so I just need to get by, when really aspects of this are not going away. So I think it's really important to be focusing on getting the remote stuff right, and then it's going to be even more work. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Anyone here have thoughts on that? I would love to hear it. Okay. So now, darn you. Now I'm trying to figure out how to build a Notion workspace. Yeah. But it's so exciting. Okay. I would say it's exciting to me. I love building and constructing things, but really when you spend a little bit of time on the Notion workspace, I will say that as you start to solve pain points and address problems with your workspace, it gets so much better. Also, I feel like I'm really behind in the comments today. So let's see what else. Okay. I will try to tell this short, and I think I've narrowed this down. So the clock, I guess there's two elements to the clock story. One is that when we moved into this house, there was a TV mount. So there is a TV mount on the wall behind me, and we didn't want to take it down and leave big holes. So instead we just stuck a clock on it. So that's the first part. That's why it's on an angle, because it's a pivoting TV mount. So that's the first thing. The second is that the clock we chose is actually quite loud. So it would actually kind of irritate me sometimes with how loudly it was ticking, but my microphone was picking it up. I was leading some small groups, and I would ask people to kind of sit quietly and think about something. And they would say, yeah, so when you're quiet, all I hear is your clock ticking. So it was actually impacting their experience. Just like if I'm quiet in the room and I start to notice the clock ticking, that's all I can hear. So I just ripped out the battery, and I have never plugged it in. I never put the battery back in. So that is the time when I took out the battery. So the advantage for me is that I don't have to hear the clock tick. I'm still covering up that weird mount. And the third thing is that if I am editing videos, which I really rarely ever do, the time's not jumping all over the place. So there, so I just leave it. Also, it seems to be quite a talking point for people. Okay. So I've got another question here. Is Notion hard to learn to navigate for a novice e-calendar organizer? My time management and organization of all my appointments, projects need help. Productivity is not efficient. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, let me just make sure. So there's a few things here. All right. When it comes to Notion, I will say that it still does not replace a calendar. I still very much, like my workday, I have my calendar open and I have my Notion open. So I still will use my calendar for appointments and sort of seeing how my time is blocked out, etc. So that is never going to go away. However, since Notion is where I manage my tasks and projects and productivity, I like to see what is on for each day. So I did set up an integration. So Notion has an API, and I use Zapier for my integration, but there are other options. And I send my calendar appointments events. I don't send, if I just blocked some time, I don't worry about that, but I will send events to my Notion so that they will show up. So if I look at today, I can actually see if I have, let's say I have a meeting with someone, it'll show up in the things I have to do today. So when I'm organizing my time, I can actually see my events and my tasks together. I have different icons, so I can easily see whether it's an event or a task. So that helps me visually. That being said, I would say that Notion can definitely be a lot for a new person, partly because it, or someone who's new to Notion, partly because it's so customizable. It's literally a blank slate when you start. So if you are starting with someone else's template, I can see how that can sometimes help, but I really like the idea of sort of building your own space and learning how to work with the tool, because if you get someone else's template, but it's not actually how you operate, then there's a little bit of a drawback there. So I would say the best way to learn Notion is to pick one area of your life that you can start to learn the tool. So a great example for me, content. So listing all my content ideas, mapping them out on a calendar, seeing them all in one place, that for me was a really great way to learn Notion and to get used to it and get comfortable with it. Same could be said for just tracking, a library, a resource library where you save articles and YouTube videos and kind of have those and just tag them, and you can organize them and say, what am I reading right now? Or what's coming up? What have I watched already? Is there something I want to summarize? So taking one area of your life and choosing to put that into Notion and learn it and get comfortable with it, and then slowly roll it out. So the very first thing I did, it wasn't actually the content. It was creating sort of a CRM for workshops. So I wanted to have a customer relationship management database to track the people I was having conversations with about running workshops. Like, who had I had a conversation with? Who had I booked already? So I did that. That was my first thing that I worked on. And I forced myself to not build anything else in Notion until I at least used it, meaning reached out to those people on the list, and then I could build more. So I sort of incentivized myself not to just get caught up, because you could spend probably weeks. And a good friend of mine said, build, but don't spend, if you're building a customer relationship management tool because you want business, make sure you're not spending the next 2 weeks building a workspace instead of actually getting business. And I thought that was really powerful. So it should not be a detractor. And one of the other things that I did was sort of made the conscious choice that I will not build Notion during the workday. So unless I specifically carved out time and said, on Friday afternoon, I'm going to build a database, I would actually just build in the evenings or build on the weekends. And so it was sort of like a spare time type of thing, so that it wasn't actually detracting me from doing work. I hope that makes sense, but I would say start with one thing and get to know it. Okay, so if there's time, can you show us your Notion workspace? I would love to see the ideas. Okay, so the only thing is I'm open to showing it. I just haven't looked at what's in there. So I would have to do a quick peek. So I'm going to scan the comments and get caught up, because what I could do is just take a look and see if there's anything that I don't necessarily need you to see, like about my business or about I'm doing some work with clients. I wouldn't want you to see any of the client stuff. So I can take a look. That shouldn't take very long. But I'm really behind on the comments. Okay. Okay, I see. Oh, interesting. Okay, more momentum. Disadvantage of mounting is vibrations and movements. Definitely. So that's something I should be cautious of. Although I guess if that will happen with my onboard camera and computer as well. But, monopod. Thank you very much. I do believe that is an appropriate name, and this shows you how far behind I am. Okay. Oh wait, did I miss the question higher up? I see this comment here. Maybe the answer will simply be just practice more, but I wanted to ask how you're so comfortable speaking to the camera. You rarely use fillers. So I'm actually glad you brought this up, because I was thinking about this recently if you've ever heard of the 10,000 hours piece with Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about people who become good at something, they put in a lot of time. So when we look at athletes and we look at, musicians, they have put all of this time into their craft. And so even though I am new to live streaming, I've really only been doing the whole talk into a camera thing for just over a year. And the reason that I'm comfortable is because my job used to be literally public speaking. My very first job out of university was traveling around. I'd go to about 3 high schools every single day for months in a row, and I would present to groups of students. So I put in my time. Now I did that job for 3 years where I was public speaking. That was my job as a recruiter. And then when I switched into other roles, I was still running training, I was still doing workshops, and then I would continue to get workshop facilitator stuff on the side. So I did mental health first aid training, suicide alertness training. I, ran immunity to change sessions, Enneagram sessions. So I do have a background in facilitation. So speaking is something that I both love, but that I have put in a lot of time. So I worked on removing filler words a really long time ago. So that is why when people will ask me about my confidence or comfort on camera, I would say a lot of the speaking element is because of my experience speaking to groups, but I did have to learn some new techniques, and those are more recent, because if you see some of my earlier videos from around a year ago or just before that, I'm a little bit more stiff. I am a little bit more tightened up because I still had that mentality of I need to be really polished and professional and put together. And I didn't realize that the camera steals your energy. So I didn't notice that I had to show up with more energy and kind of over deliver in order to not look flat, because I was coming across as flat before. I didn't realize how much the camera was stealing energy away from me. So I hope that answers your question. I do repeat a lot of words though. You probably know them. I am not going to say them because as soon as I do, then I'll be hyper aware of them. All right. So let's try and catch up a little bit. I found that my Canon vicissitudes camera with capture card needs more light than my bio webcam. Have you experienced this? Unfortunately, no, I have not. So I cannot really address that question. So Tommy is saying Elgato multi-mount, more expensive but flexible and robust. Thank you, Tommy, for that. And do you have to stand to get the camera at eye height? It seems terribly high when used. Yeah, so let's take another look. If we take a look at my setup, and if anyone just joining might have not seen this, my camera is directly in front of me, which is higher up. So the way I have my desk set up, I wonder if I can do this without being too awkward. No, I can't tip my, so I have a standing height desk, and I did that on purpose so that I could, right now I'm standing, and I prefer to present while standing. I find it easier to bring more energy. I feel like I'm talking in front of a room, which is my happy place. But when I am seated, and I have a drafting chair, so it's a comfortable higher chair so that my desk never moves. It doesn't go up and down. It's not a stand sit desk. It is at standing height all the time. And I rarely, sometimes I will sit down and look at the camera, but I am looking up a little bit more. Let's see, let me do this temporarily. If I go to one of my seated scenes, so I have a few scenes in Ecamm set up where I'm seated. So if we go here, so that's the difference. That's not awkward at all. So essentially I can sit at my desk and still look at the camera. However, when I am seated and not presenting, I will often just use my either built-in or now I have the webcam set up. I just use that. It's at a better level for me when I am seated. And I find I don't need the whole teleprompter set up, partly because I'm trained to just stare at the camera anyway when I am talking to people using my built-in. Okay. Yes, thank you, Michael, for sharing some folks who know more about audio. I'm so behind. Okay. And is a teleprompter on a tripod or mounted? It is on a tripod. Let's go to the overhead shot. So it's really hard to see. I wonder if I can. So you can kind of see it when I do, whoa, extreme close up of my face. So there is a tripod that is behind my desk. So it is actually on the floor, And then at the top of it, and I know my mic looks like it's in the same place, but the mic's directly in front of it. So at the top of this tripod stand, I have the teleprompter, and then the teleprompter, that face thing is trippy. On top of that is my camera. Now let's try and put this back so that you see. It's hard to get this right. There. Is it in the shot? No, it's not. So it is mounted on a tripod that is on the ground. And that is a tripod I've had for over 20 years. I got that for my actual camera, like a 35mm camera. All right. So, oh, okay. I had to buy a cloud lifter for my Rode Pro. Yeah. I was wondering about that. I did a little bit of research before I bought it and whether I might need a cloud lifter in addition to it. And I was hoping that I didn't. So far, that my main complaint is that I laugh. And when I laugh, I don't like the sound of that picking up. So even though I've angled it so that it's so it's directing from the side, I don't like that breathy sound when I laughed, but it is what it is. And I'm not going to stop laughing at myself. So. All right, and we have a recommendation for a desk clamp. Thank you very much for that. Business growth ready. Okay, all right, I'm getting some feedback here a long time ago that I don't have a bad gap with my audio. And Jeff is saying I use the Rodecaster Pro to enhance my microphone, not for recording. So yeah, that's basically my similar use case right now. I may in the future do some recording, but I don't have time for that right now. All right. Oh, this is actually a fun question, Paul. Are the plants alive or fake? It's both. One of them is alive and one of them is fake. Actually, one of them might not stay alive very long if I don't water it. So this one is fake and this one is real. So that answers that question. That was an easy one. Do you ever try using Audio Hijack? So I do have Audio Hijack. That is actually one of the first things I got before I changed my microphone. So when I was using the Yeti, which is a condenser microphone, and it was picking up all the extra sounds like the clock, I got Audio Hijack and I tried to add different things and modify my sound and use that as a virtual mixer. And I could just never get it right. What I really needed to do was probably sit down with someone and properly adjust the sound and actually notice the difference. And I just didn't commit that time. And then I did get the new dynamic microphone. And so I haven't really used Audio Hijack since then, but I still have it and I'm open to using it. And I know Tommy, who's one of the students in the Elevate class, he showed some other classmates how he's using it. And it was a really great lesson. So I think there's a lot of potential there. So it is something I have, but it's something I'm not currently using, although I was using it for a while. All right. Thank you. That's very nice. And yeah, I guess so I actually don't mind answering those kinds of questions about my plants. And hello, CK, nice you could join. So that was probably from a while ago. All right, let's look at this question. As a Zoom user, how do you address breakout sessions where attendees need to be designated in designated breakout groups? The provided interface from Zoom only works if they are Zoom users. Yes, I find that a disadvantage to the pre-populating breakout rooms because they need to have an email address that is associated with the Zoom account. Even if it's a free account, it needs to be associated. So that to me is a big drawback to the designated rooms. When I am conducting a workshop and I have breakout rooms where I strategically want to place people, I will often do this in advance where I will make a list of all the people in attendance and how I want to divide them. And then I use that as a reference. So I will actually, when I'm breaking out the rooms, I will look for the names. So I'll look at group 1, I'll pick off all the names. Sometimes I will ask people to rename themselves. For example, when I would run an Enneagram workshop, which is a personality typing system where each person has test results, I would say, rename yourself in Zoom and put your Enneagram number at the start. So it would be 7, cat. So then that would help me to also designate people into specific rooms. So let's say you know people are going to break into teams and they actually already know what team they're on. You could ask them to rename themselves. You could also do something a little bit more fun, ask people to add an emoji, although not everyone knows how to do that. If you don't know how to pull up an emoji keyboard, at least on a Mac, it's Control Command Space. That will actually bring it up. So in Zoom, you can actually press Control Command Space. I don't know why that's so hard for me. And then you can actually add emojis. So you can rename yourself. You can put an emoji in your name. So that would be another fun thing, that you could put all of the unicorns together, and you could put all of the dogs together and all the cats together, something like that. So you can ask for help on their side with renaming, but also sometimes I'll just straight up have a list and I'll just use that to designate people into the room. So do you use key lights or other lighting? Do you rely on daylight? So my lighting's not the greatest. If we go to this overhead shot, so you will see, so the windows actually, the blinds are closed, but it's just because of the exposure that you can't really tell. Maybe if I tilt this up, let's take a look. So yeah, you can see it a little bit better. So here's my lighting situation. So my blinds, I really should have curtains covering those windows. That's on the list. It's right up there with learning the audio, etc. So I have a key light here. I just added this as a fill light. So it's actually on pretty low. And then I have this softbox filling the room with light. So it's pointed at the ceiling. It sort of illuminates the room. This one over here sort of illuminates my face. And before I just had these two, the softbox and this LED light here. And this one I was given as a gift, so I decided to try it, because what would happen is sometimes I would notice, and it still kind of happens, the softbox would bounce off the ceiling and sometimes leave a little bit of a shadow. And I thought maybe adding this light would sort of reduce that a little bit more. So it's more of a, so I consider this one, the LED, my key light, and then this new ring light more of something to kind of fill the light so that my face is not dramatically different. However, I do notice that sometimes my face looks overexposed, and this is the dimmest I can get. So I don't love my light situation. Maybe if I actually had the curtain, so if I could actually cover these windows, then that would help. And recently I was recording something, and there are a couple of minutes during the day where the sun hits the blinds and I get the dots down my face. That actually happened in the Zoom breakout rooms meeting on YouTube, the Zoom breakout rooms video on YouTube. You can actually see me dodging it. But because that was the only time I had my volunteers, I sort of had to keep it. It was really awkward. Okay, so let's go back. Okay. Yeah, this is a really great point about that remote conversation. Hybrid events, so important to have a dedicated person who's monitoring. You really do need to, it would be very hard to do properly on your own without having support. I think support is the way to go. All right. Get on the cat and ocean locomotion choo-choo train. Yeah. It is not for everyone, but it is wonderful. All right, so Jeff is saying here, I do hybrid, I speak to the live audience, and I have an assistant on the virtual setup. Let me know when there's a virtual question. You can't do both or you lose the live audience. It's really, really quite a balancing act, and it's going to get more interesting, yeah. Get your mods working to help you with comments. Earn those wrenches. That's funny. Okay. Okay, Stream Deck. So yeah, I can do that. I actually took a picture of my Stream Deck this morning. So I think the best way to do this would probably be to open up my configure Stream Deck and switch to my default. So let's go over, this is going to be a little bit. All right, let's share my second monitor. So this is my configure my Stream Deck option. And for a little while when I bought the XL, because I was using the 15 key for a very long time, I ended up getting the XL thanks to people who bought my icons. And I was using both side by side for a while, and then I realized that that was a bit overkill. So I have set up my XL more appropriately. So I did take some time. So this is my default. This is how I primarily will use it, which is opening sort of apps that I want to get to quickly. So I sort of have the messaging / music if I want to play music while I'm working. And this one here on the far right is just quitting programs. So that's just a hotkey. Down the side here, you'll see this is switching between my profiles. So if I'm running a Zoom call, this has more of my Zoom controls. This one would be for my workshop, and this is for streaming. So this is the one I'm on right now is actually, well, I guess right now that I've changed this, my Stream Deck has changed. Over here, the gray, these 8 in the middle, this is for Zoom. And I just picked the ones that I use the most when I am in a Zoom call, even as a participant, not necessarily running the whole call, but just on the call. So turning on and off my camera, my microphone, switching from speaker view to gallery view. Well, this one is for when I'm running a call. It's mute everybody. Opening participant window and closing, opening and closing chat. This one I just added. So this is, you know, when someone shares their screen and it puts it into full screen, this will take it out, or it does both. It toggles between, because I often find with a 27-inch monitor, I don't need someone else's screen to take up my entire screen. So I will push this button almost immediately, and then I'll pick the size I want when someone is sharing their screen. And then I can also, if I'm taking notes or if I want to refer to something else, I can see that. And down here this is taking a screenshot, opening the emoji box. This one is for getting ready to moderate. And this is my activity monitor. I just made my own icon for it. And then over here, just really opening programs that I use. And I kind of tried to cluster them a little bit aesthetically with colors that I liked. So if we go to my Ecamm, so this is what I'm on right now. And this is what I was on. I usually, if I have my scenes all set up in a row, my top corner button is just go to the next scene, go to the next scene, if I have maybe a series of different things. But as you can see today, I can quickly switch between my main camera, my second monitor, and my overhead camera. I can do that really easily. The slides I'm not using today. I do have a couple of sound effects. I can switch to demo mode. I can mute myself, and then I can hide comments. And then this is to get me back to the main one. This is to start and stop the stream. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview. I won't go too much into it. I also realize how behind I am. This is going longer than I thought. Okay. Wait. Oh no, I did answer that question. Oh, that's funny about the clock, AM or PM. That was PM. Yes. I didn't spring out of bed in the middle of the morning. It's like, the clock, it's gotta go. All right. Okay. Oh, I'm so behind. Okay. I guess me repeating that over and over is not really helpful for you. All right. So this one I hope is clear now. How does my Stream Deck layout help make my live streams easier? Starting and stopping, absolutely. Toggling between scenes, especially if it's main camera, demo, etc. I can just do that at the press of a button. But if I'm doing a presentation where I have multiple things, just pressing next scene is actually something I use very commonly, because I will set out all my scenes in order with the flow of all the things that I want to show. And I can make comments disappear. Is it true you have a diary where you just write I love Notion and stencil Cat Melville Notion over and over? Yeah, I imagine our wedding one day, me and Notion. All right. Okay. Yeah, so I assume you're talking about the Notion ones, and the Notion videos that I have posted, I think if you want an intro to Notion, my very first Notion for content creation covers a lot of the essentials of how you can filter things and view things and do properties. And so that one, it's a little bit longer, but I did add chapters to that so you can jump between if there's something specific you want to learn for Notion. All right. And I am glad that you appreciated that answer to my public speaking question. It's okay. I repeat the, it, and a lot. I do say those a lot. I do. All right. I say it comes with practice. The other thing that I'll say just on the speaking and the filler words is that I grew up with a dad who despised when I would say like. And so when I would say something and add the word like in it, he would say, is it like that or is it? And as a teenager, that drove me nuts, but it made me stop saying like so often. I still say it, but nowhere near to the degree. The other thing I will say, because it does take time to get there, is videotaping yourself. So that's the first thing we did as recruiters is we filmed ourselves and we had people watch us and tell us if we were saying certain filler words. I think at some point I actually asked someone while I was speaking to just put up their finger every time I said a filler word. So that's another thing that you can do. It's a bit aggressive, but it will stop you faster than just simply practice alone. So watching yourself back, hearing you repeat words, hearing you say filler words, and if you're willing to have somebody help you out, they will tell you every time you're doing that. Okay. And yes, this goes back to camera quality regarding USB. It will be lower resolution. So there's a trade-off, and that's why I'm going to use the capture card. I don't know what that stands for. So what IEM, if you can help me out, that would be great. Okay. Did you make that into a GIF yet? CK? There we go. There's another one. Okay. Do you use noise suppression software? So I do not. I did try that before using Audio Hijack, and then I also know there were some other plugins I could have brought into Audio Hijack, but for now I don't. And I'm trying to. So what is this Elevate class you speak of occasionally? I do have a class. It is not currently open, but it will be reopening soon, where I focus on 4 different aspects of elevating your online presentations. So there's prep, present, engage, and elevate are the 4 different areas. So what are the things to really focus on for running a more professional and more engaging online presentation, which is what I'm all about. And okay, this is a good question. And a lot of people have asked me this. What do you use to display the questions? I know it's possible someone might have answered this. It's Ecamm Live. So that is what I use to go live on YouTube. It's also what I use to record my lessons and present and use as a virtual camera primarily. I sometimes use OBS, but more so Ecamm. So Ecamm Live. Hi, Andrew from Malaysia. It's nice to have you here. Oh, thank you, Paul. This is great. Paul Willen, Windows users can use WinKey Plus to open the emoji keyboard. You heard it here. And I assume that works when you are in a Zoom meeting. So I really like adding emojis to Zoom in the chat, and you can add it to your name and rename yourself. Okay. Okay, Jeff has a question. Teleprompter. Is it showing the broadcast output or only actual prompts? Are they sourced from iPad with prompting software? So I no longer use, I used an iPad early on. I don't anymore. So if we go to this overhead shot, and if I tilt it back, so this here is actually a monitor. So I upgraded to a monitor. I used to have the iPad that would sit in here, and I would use a cable to connect it to my computer. Now I have a monitor. So this literally is like monitor 2, monitor 3. So what I am doing right now is actually sending my output to this. So whatever you see in Ecamm, you see here. So this is what we call a video monitor. So if I go into demo mode, let's try going into demo mode. Okay, so now you can see my display. This is my main screen, what I can see. When I go to output in Ecamm and I go to video monitor, I have it sent to my LCD TV, which is my teleprompter monitor. If I turn that off, now you can actually see here, and actually if I switch out of demo mode, you are not, well, yeah, you can see here, it's just a background of a monitor. So if we go back into demo mode, if I go output, video monitor, LCD, now I am sending everything you can see, I can see here. So if we leave demo mode, it's small, but you can see in this camera, everything that's in Ecamm and everything that's going to YouTube is in front of me right now. So I always see what you see. So if I put up a comment, then I can see that comment. If I put up an image or a slide or text, you can see that. For example, let's do a cheesy little segue. So if I want to show my monitor and mention that I'm going to be speaking at Leap into Live Streaming Bootcamp this September and that you should totally attend, I can put that up on the screen and I will see it in front of me, but it's also down on my screen. So I can look down on my screen. And if I wanted to have this graphic showing you where to go to register for Leap into Live, which is free, by the way, or you can pay $20 to get all the recordings, then you can go to this website, which, yes, in retrospect, I should have definitely put this in the description. But leapintolive.com will take you there. So that's an example where I can see exactly what you see so that it's basically my confidence monitor. All right. Where is the order? Where's the order food button? I do not have that on my Stream Deck, but you could probably program it to do that if you knew what you wanted. Jojo's asking, have you configured Microsoft Teams equivalents to your Zoom? I have not. I rarely use it. I have been invited to a couple of Teams meetings, and I sometimes ask those organizations if I'm running a presentation to just use Zoom instead because of Teams manipulating the shape of the video. It's not ideal for using the virtual camera. So I'm very rarely on it. I'm sure that there are shortcuts and you could put those hotkeys for Teams shortcuts into your Stream Deck though. And I'm sure someone else has maybe tried this. Yeah, so Tommy has answered this with some of the options of how you can program your Stream Deck to help you out in a Teams meeting. Wait, there were like Valley Girls in Canada? Oh, like is all over the place. It's all over the place. And it's still very much used by many, many people. Oh, thank you, Devin. That's really nice. In-ear monitor. I don't know what that is in relation to Tommy. You're mentioning the monitor. Jojo, thank you very much for being, she's in the class and I appreciate your nice feedback. Okay, I'm gonna have to reread this. So this question says, have you used Feel World Live Pro L1 to use multiple cameras? Or do you only have virtual cameras? So I assume Feel World Live Pro L1 would be a camera switcher. So similar to using, why am I blanking? The Ecamm. That's what I assume that question. Because right now, so I only use software. I don't really have, I've got my primary camera. When my new camera arrives, if anyone missed it at the start, I did order the new Sony ZV-E10. I will have that in another position. So theoretically I could do that, but because my software does it for me and I'm using my software for so many other things, right now using a camera switcher does not necessarily, I don't see it making sense for me and my setup. So I do use software for that. And Ken says, are the earphones you're wearing easy to use? Yes. I will say if you buy them, let me see if I can show you this. So I would get an extension. So these are very inexpensive. I learned about them from Luria at Live Streaming Pros, but you don't want to be super close to your computer. So I have a 3 foot, I think, extension. And then they also have a little clip. So I usually will clip that onto my clothing so that it doesn't kind of pull pull on my ears, but they are easy to use. I don't love the feel of them for a really long time, so my preference is to not wear them for too long. In-ear monitor. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Now I'm all caught up. And I'm sure you're way ahead. And thank you. Yes, CK has posted in, that's the MEM6. There, where is that? Here we go. Yes. The in-ear monitor. I use them as, transparent black. I know for a little while the transparent was out, but they are here now. Wow, I've been going for almost an hour. Oh my goodness. Okay. Do you find Zapier helps you to automate your work? So I am just scratching the surface. I love the integrations that I have for my Notion space. I really do like that that is automatically happening. There are a few other things that I am planning to test out with integrations, but I'm actually doing work with a client right now and set up some really great Zaps recently. So it's a bit of a learning curve, and sometimes it's not always intuitive. I won't get into it. I could go into a whole long spiel. I'm not going to, but I do find it has a ton of integrations and things that you can do. And actually, Livestreaming Pros, I was working with them recently or earlier this week. We set up a new integration that just helps with the flow of moderation. So there's a lot of really exciting things that you can do with Zapier. So it does help, but I've barely scratched the surface. And I need to do more of that so that I can, because I talk about being a company of one and not having time. So if I can set aside some time to set up some automations, I could probably improve my workflow in a significant way. Jeff says, can the Zoom current speaker be put into an Ecamm PIP? Oh, so yeah, I think you can do it. I've seen people in the Ecamm community talk about doing this. It wouldn't be a feed to my knowledge right now. So there, like, for example, Skype is great for bringing people into a feed because Skype can actually show up as an NDI source. To my knowledge, the current Zoom meeting client does not do that. I do believe that they're working on some, the ISO Zoom stuff that you might be able to actually bring in someone as a source. So what you would do as a workaround is set up your Zoom, as you said, kind of pin that speaker, and then you would be capturing part of your screen, which you could either do as a screen share, which is a little bit intensive on the computer. I don't know that I would recommend that. Or you could use NDI on the same computer and run NDI for your Zoom meeting and bring that in as a source. So bring it in like a camera overlay and then have that in as a PIP. So you could do it. It would just take some setting up, and then you want to make sure that you don't move things around or jostle them. And thank you, CK, for sharing that. And okay. Thank you, Enrique. That's very nice. I hope I pronounced your name right. Also, someone recently commented on my YouTube channel that that it would be really helpful to have a French channel. And my French is rusty, so I think I think you know who you are. I've got some French speaking folks who know a lot about this stuff, and there seems to be a demand, and my French, c'est pas bon. No. That would be really difficult. Okay. And thank you, Patrick. Very, very proud of that tongue-in-cheek segue to the Leap Into Live. But in all seriousness, the Leap Into Live event, I loved it last year. I do highly recommend it. There's some incredible speakers. All right. I think I'm catching up. Yes, the earphones, they're excellent, and they really are. I mean, you can tell I'm wearing in-ear, but they don't distract. They're not something that people are constantly staring at. So I think they are great. Although I only really have a second sound at the start of my presentation, but if I did want to play some, I think I have, that is on my Stream Deck. As I said before, I did not program any of the buttons on my Rodecaster Pro, but maybe I will. It'd be fun if I had some little sayings or sound effects or something like that. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so Harry is asking, What are the specs of your iMac and what operating system? You have a 3.8 gigahertz, 8 core, 32 gigabyte Radeon Pro, 57 XT, 16 gigabytes graphic card with Big Sur and can't run Ecamm or OBS. Okay, so mine, I have not actually updated my computer. You might be able to tell from my background. So my MacBook is on Big Sur, but my iMac is still not. And partly because I want to make sure I do that properly and commit the time. So I did actually a full reset with my MacBook, and my MacBook was not really very powerful. And so that's one of the reasons I upgraded to this. So my actual specs, let me just say about this Mac. So I'm still on Catalina. I have, so mine's a 2019. Yeah, it says it here. 2019 27-inch 5K Retina screen, 3.6 gigahertz, 8 core in Core i9. Memory, it used to be 16. I put it up to 32 gigabytes, so I doubled my RAM myself, which was a very exciting day. And storage-wise, I have 500 gigabytes. So I would say my computer does start chugging. It's fine for, I can run this stream, everything that you kind of see here with this setup, it works. But right now the fan's going. So you might not be able to hear it, but I can hear that the fan is going. So my intention is, even though I really only got this last July, I've had this iMac for 1 year, basically. Depending on what Apple announces, I do want to get an M1. I am going to switch to the M1 processor when I can, so I'll probably trade this in and then get the next one. But the newer iMacs that they just came out with, I don't like the size. I really love the size of this display, like the 27. So when they went down to 24, also, I'm just waiting to see what else they come out with. But I'm able to run this. I'm able to run a Zoom meeting with Ecamm, but I really close every other thing and make sure that I am minimizing the demands on my computer, but it still kicks in, and the fan was just going here right now. It's slowed down. That's your play-by-play on my fan. But I know the frustration when I was trying to run this on my MacBook Pro and thought this should be stronger, and it was not cutting it. So, is Zap an app? So Zapier is a software program that will kind of connect multiple applications. So an example of a Zap would be anytime I have a new calendar entry on my Google Calendar, it sends that into my Notion workspace, or it could send it into a Google Sheet, or it could send me an email saying, hey, you have a new appointment. And a recent example that I set up is when I'm working with a group on creating a community for students. So when the student says which faculty they're in, the Zapier will say, oh, they checked off that this is their faculty. So it's going to automatically add them into a faculty group based on what they checked off in their entry survey. So it's really just automating stuff so you don't have to do it manually. So hopefully so Zoom Rooms, you could do NDI feeds. That's helpful to know. Zoom Rooms has some benefits. I have a friend who has a Zoom Rooms, I don't know, what do you call them? So he has a physical monitor for the Zoom Rooms, so it can sit on his desk and he can join a Zoom meeting using his Zoom Rooms computer technology monitor. And did you know that when someone joins your meeting from a Zoom Room piece of tech, that it will actually, if they're on high definition, so if they're 1080, everyone's resolution goes up. It's pretty incredible. We tested it and I thought, well, this is handy. And so he's like, well, technically a workaround if you want high definition is you get someone from a Zoom room to join your meeting, and then everyone's quality is going to go up. But that seems like a lot of work to invite somebody, or to like invite yourself into every meeting with the Zoom room technology. So, but we'll see what happens. I'm sure it's constantly changing. Oh, okay. So we're trying to set up a podcast, looking for a way to bring on a guest without the crop functions. Oh, interesting. yeah, I hope that goes well. There are probably multiple options for that. And promo code. So I don't, oops, that's not the one I tried to show. That is not. So I was trying to show what's the promo code for Leap into Live. Well, so it's free without a promo code. I think. Someone else correct me if I'm wrong about that, because because I'm speaking, I didn't actually have to register myself. So if anyone else knows, I don't think there's a promo code. And so Patrick's saying, what's your strategy of interacting with and showing the chat message? I see some streamers pull up a message and keep it there for a very long time, even if they go on a tangent. I don't have a strategy. I don't think. Maybe it's because actually getting rid of the message, it's not as easy to pop up the message. So I don't know. It's not a strategy. I just try and show it, read it, have it up there for long enough that people could see it and then put it back down. But sometimes, as a person who comments on other people's chats, sometimes I find it awkward if my comment is hanging out there for a really long time. I'm like, get that down. So I guess my strategy is to not make people squirm if their comment is sitting there. Is that a strategy? Oh, okay. So M1's amazing for Final Cut Pro. So I have not tried Final Cut Pro. I have Adobe Premiere, although I very rarely use it because I say one and done, meaning I just film me talking and then ship it. But I recently heard, I think Luria said live to drive. There we go. That's the term. I had not heard that before, but just present it live and then ship that. So that's usually how I do most of my recorded videos is I just pretend I'm doing a live stream, do the whole thing, and then send it on its way. Although I recently did a gray hair update and I definitely said the wrong thing and I didn't want to re-record it. So I just put it into Adobe and said, oops, this is what I meant to say instead, and then shipped that. So I try to conserve my energy, I guess you could say. And Patrick's saying the M1 Mac Mini has been the best purchase I've made in the past year. I am excited for it. And I did check at the Apple Store how much my iMac is worth for a trade-in. And I'm happy to say he said that was the highest amount he has seen for a trade-in. It's still way lower than what I paid. And yes, I am also, I'm holding out and seeing what they come up with. All right. Yes, I've been talking for a really long time. Thank you for coming, Homesick Mac. And yes, this is a nice way to say it, like for Zapier integration between multiple apps. So if an app has an API, which is that someone else like Patrick probably knows what that stands for, but when Notion released its API, it meant that now Notion was one of the apps that could sort of talk with other apps and you can set up you can kind of map different fields, etc. Yes, this is another way to say it. If they don't natively communicate, it can do that as well. I'm caught up. I'm so excited. It's probably because everyone had to go because I've been talking for so long. Are you waiting on a bigger monitor or the M1X, M2, whatever they call it? I think a combination. Because my computer works, I haven't been in a rush. Yes, it does. The fan kicks in, which is sort of frustrating, but for the most part, it does its job. I'm able to do everything I'm trying to do. So I thought I don't want to rush out right now and get the first generation if I don't need it. I know some people are big advocates of having a dedicated streaming computer. That just doesn't fit in my budget. So I would rather have it as my primary computer. So I did purposely decide to wait. I was hoping that maybe in the spring they would have the M1. Well, I mean, they did have an M1 iMac. That wasn't what I wanted. So I am holding out and seeing. So I think it's a combination. If the processor gets better, great. And if the size gets bigger, like the screen, that would be great too. Because I love the size of this screen real estate. It makes my life very happy. And then, application programming interface. Thank you, Patrick, for that. All right. This has gone on longer than I expected, but I'm really happy with the fact that there were lots of questions and I didn't have to just awkwardly sort of fill in the time So I thank you to everyone who showed up today, who asked questions. This was an amazing conversation. So I guess my last question for anyone who's still around, would you like to see these occasionally? Would you like to just have the open Q&A? Is this something that I can maybe more regularly incorporate? I am not going to trim this. I'm just going to leave this as is so that the chat will still also be available. But I would love your feedback on if this is the type of thing that you would actually want to see again. And I have to once again plug, well, I don't have to, but I should, the leapintolive.com event. So I am doing a panel, I think on the first day, about presentations, virtual presentations. And then I also have a presentation on 7 tips for more engaging remote meetings and workshops. So that will also be part of that. And I'll be in the community chatting, getting involved. So I would love to see some of you, well, all of you there. I'd love to see all of you there. And I see some yeses. Okay. Oh, and it's particularly convenient for Robert because he's got some free time on Wednesdays. Okay. And no hour two. It's lunchtime for me. I'm in Eastern time zone. So I need to fuel myself. And oh, more Notion videos. Okay. I would be happy to do a few more Notion videos. And so thank you for that. So, okay. You seem enthusiastic. Some of you are still around. I'm really impressed. More Q&A. Yeah, maybe once a quarter. Mix it up. So the one that I was originally going to do but did not have ready is a virtual second monitor, which is actually a recommendation I got from one of the Elevate students. And I tried it out myself. And so I'm going to share about that. So that'll probably be next week. All right. I do have to eventually go, but I really love hanging out with all of you, answering your questions. And so thank you so much for joining me live today and making my first attempt at an open Q&A a really enjoyable experience. So I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.